Shalom, 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 Israel. This is Captain Paul Israel from Kingdom Builders of Israel, LLC. And today's class lesson is going to be on Yahshua promoted Yahweh's commandments and not the Christian religion. Again, Israel, today's class topic is going to be on Yahshua promoted Yahweh's commandments and not the Christian religion. Okay, Israel, so this is going to be a good class lesson to discuss about this particular topic on Yahshua promoting Yahweh's commandments. So Israel, get out a pen and notepad because this is going to be a good lesson to discuss on this topic. And also, too, this is going to be a good lesson to discuss for you new viewers on this understanding, to understand that Yahshua, the Black Messiah, was all about promoting Yahweh's commandments and not the Christian religion. So we're first going to start out in the book of Romans chapter 11 verse 1 to get the understanding that the children of Israel always promoted their nationality over the religion concept. Okay, the children of Israel always promoted their nationality as their basis to focus on Yahweh's commandments, because many of our people that's in the Christian faith religion, they are always promoting that they are Christian, right? That they are a part of a Christian base of understanding, which is all worldly concept, because those Christian religion concepts or titles have nothing to do with this Bible. Okay, and we're going to prove that understanding in this lesson. So we're basically going to start out in the book of Romans chapter 11 verse 1. So now this is Apostle Paul speaking to our people that was living in, of course, Rome. Okay, so he's speaking to our people who are identifying as being Romans. He's not literally speaking to the white nation who were classified as being Roman. Apostle Paul was speaking to those 12 tribes who were scattered abroad in Rome, because our people who are a part of the 12 tribes of Israel were scattered abroad even in Apostle Paul's time frame. So we had Hebrew Israelites dispersed in these particular areas, especially in Rome. So Apostle Paul is speaking to those scattered Hebrew Israelites who were a part of those 12 tribes. Okay, so this is the analogy. Romans chapter 11 verse 1. I say then, have Elohim cast away his people? Elohim forbid. For I also am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. So as you can see, Apostle Paul made it crystal clear to our people that was living in Rome, because our people was following Gentile fashions while living in Rome. So Apostle Paul had to make it crystal clear that he was a Hebrew Israelite from the tribe of Benjamin. As you can see, Apostle Paul repped his tribe. He made it crystal clear to our people that was living in Rome that he was all about the Hebrew culture, because our people that was in Rome followed the Roman culture. So you see the difference of understanding. So Apostle Paul made it crystal clear that he was a Hebrew Israelite from the tribe of Benjamin. Notice that Apostle Paul didn't go to Rome to classify himself as being a Christian. He made it crystal clear that he was a Hebrew Israelite. He was an Israelite from the tribe of Benjamin. Point blank, period. 2 Corinthians chapter 11 verse 22. So when we read the book of Corinthians, Apostle Paul in this concept is speaking to our people living in Corinth, which was one of those Greek cities. So again, he is speaking to our people who are identifying as being Greek or Grecians. Okay, he's speaking to the disbursement of the 12 tribes of Israel who were dispersed in these areas, in these Greek cities. 2 Corinthians chapter 11 verse 22. Are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they the seed of Abraham? So am I. So again, Apostle Paul is addressing to the Corinthians as being the Hebrew Israelites. As you can see, he's addressing Hebrew Israelites in the city called Corinth, where Hebrew Israelites, who were those 12 tribes of Israel, they was living in a city called Corinth. So that's why he's saying, are they Hebrews? So am I. So he's speaking to the Hebrew Israelites in these areas. Apostle Paul is not trying to convert these people to being Christianized in a religion concept. He's trying to convince these individuals that's living in Corinth, who were Hebrew Israelites, to come out of the ways of the world and follow their Hebrew culture as Hebrew Israelites in the right spirit, under Yahshua Mashiach's spirit of understanding. That's what Apostle Paul is telling and having a conversation with the Corinthians on. As you can see in his understanding, he's explaining history to people living in a Greek city called Corinth, who are basically these particular people who were Hebrew Israelites. They were being labeled as being Corinthians. So Apostle Paul is letting the Corinthians know that their history go back to Abraham, based upon these individuals being Hebrew Israelites. So when you read this Bible in its proper context, you see who the audience Apostle Paul is addressing. Apostle Paul is not addressing all nationalities in Corinth. Apostle Paul is addressing Hebrew Israelites living in Corinth, which is that Greek city, because we had Hebrew Israelites scattered in these Greek cities. Point blank period. The Bible doesn't contradict itself. But these Christian religions contradict the Bible to graft in all nationalities as being accepted under this understanding of this Bible. But as you can see, the Bible is explaining itself as being addressed to the Hebrew Israelites. So now that we got the understanding that at different instances, the men of Israel always promoted themselves as being Hebrew Israelites. So this is not a new thing that's being promoted in the earth right now, as far as people present themselves as being Hebrew Israelites. So the men who wrote this Bible always put it out there that they were Hebrew Israelites. They always promoted their nationality, not necessarily a religion title. Okay, they did not. The men of this Bible did not promote themselves as a religion title. The men of this Bible promoted themselves as being Hebrew Israelites, as you can see. So now we're going to go to the book of John, chapter 1, verse 47, to get the understanding that John, who was a disciple of Christ, the Black Messiah, right? John is going to let it be known that Yahshua Mashiach, the Black Messiah, was all about helping and guiding his people who were Hebrew Israelites to get the right understanding of his word. So now John, the disciple of Yahshua Mashiach, is going to explain that Yahshua Mashiach, the Black Messiah, addressed his men as being Hebrews or Israelites, or based upon them being the descendants of Abraham, based upon that lineage line going back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So Yahshua's ministry was to who? The Israelites. And John, the disciple, is going to confirm this understanding that Yahshua Mashiach was never about promoting the Christianized religion concept on coming to him, because Yahshua Mashiach is in the understanding of Yahweh's righteousness coming back to the Father by being what? A Hebrew Israelite by nationality. In this understanding, you're going to see this concept that Yahshua Mashiach is coming from the understanding of an Israelite by nationality in this understanding. And you're not going to see the word Christian in this understanding. John chapter 1 verse 47. It says, Yahshua saw Nathanael coming to him, and said of him, Behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom is no guile. So you see this, Israel? So Yahshua never referred to a disciple named Nathanael as being a Christian indeed. He said an Israelite indeed, because Yahshua Mashiach, the Black Messiah, is only dealing with nationality on the Hebrew Israelite understanding. See, Yahshua is going to come with truth. Yahshua never referred to his disciples or men that followed him as Christians. Right? He referred to his men as either Hebrews, Jews, or Israelites. So when we as a people say, hey, we Hebrew Israelites, this is no new thing. Right? See, this Bible is a promotion of Hebrew Israelite concept. See, man is teaching from a worldly base of understanding, from a religious stance of a title, of a Christian title. Right? But we as Hebrew Israelites, we're going to operate as Hebrew Israelites based upon this Bible's blueprint. We're not going to follow what man says. Because man titles does not make a man who they really are. A man's title does not define a woman who she is. Right? A man's title is going off the understanding of philosophy. See, we're going to go off what this Bible says, that the men and women of this Bible were Hebrew Israelites. Right? Their seed line go back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Point blank, period. So this is why Yahshua the Mashiach, the Black Messiah, addressed Nathaniel, who was a follower of Yahshua the Mashiach, right? To say what? He was what? An Israelite indeed. Because Yahshua the Mashiach is going to address this man as his true nature as being what? A Hebrew Israelite. Not a title being called a Christian. No, he's going to address this man as an Israelite. And this is what the problem the brothers and sisters are having in these religious organizations. They are not adopting to the custom of the Hebrews. They are adopting their customs of a worldly base of understanding what their slave master told them who they were. But this Bible is going to classify your nationality as a Hebrew Israelite over titles. Because titles are man-made. Let's go to the book of Acts chapter 1 verse 1 to prove that Yahshua the Mashiach, the Black Messiah, was all about promoting Yahweh's commandments of understanding to those disciples. Yahshua the Mashiach never told those disciples to form a religion called Christianity. Yahshua the Mashiach, the Black Messiah, never told his disciples to convert people over to being a Christian. Yahshua the Mashiach never told his disciples to what? Classify yourself with those religion titles from those Christian religions. Yahshua the Mashiach never told his disciples to be in that understanding. I'm going to show you what Yahshua the Mashiach gave that order of commandment to give to his disciples on. Yahshua the Mashiach deals with order. You're going to read this understanding. Acts chapter 1 verse 1. And this is in the New Testament. Acts chapter 1 verse 1. The former treaties have I made, O Theophilus, of all that Yahshua began both to do and teach. So again, this particular letter is addressed to a man named Theophilus, right? Theophilus was a man that this particular letter and this concept in the book of Acts chapter 1 verse 1 was wrote to. Okay, so the person, whoever was this author, who was basically, of course, a disciple of Christ, wrote this understanding, right? To say, hey, I'm going to explain to you what Yahshua the Mashiach, the Black Messiah, began both to do and teach. I'm going to explain the core basis of Yahshua the Mashiach's teaching. So this gospel can be spread to Theophilus. So now that this man named Theophilus could now share the knowledge to other brothers and sisters to show that this is what Yahshua the Mashiach message were to those disciples on how to spread this gospel of him to the people who were the Hebrew Israelites. This is the understanding when we go to Acts chapter 1 verse 2 in this particular next verse of understanding. So we went from Acts chapter 1 verse 1. Now we're going to go to the book of Acts chapter 1 verse 2 to get the analogy on where I'm going at, to show you that Yahshua the Mashiach's message was to those disciples on this particular subject matter, to explain the whole overall view on what direction Yahshua was trying to push to those disciples to teach the other people who were those Hebrew Israelites that were scattered abroad. Let's see the understanding that Yahshua promoted Yahweh's commandments. This is the proof. Acts chapter 1 verse 2. It says this, until the day in which he was taken up, after that he through the Holy Ghost had given commandments unto the apostles whom he had chosen. Whoa, wait a minute. You see this, Israel? So you see what this particular man, whoever had wrote this understanding to Otheophilus, right? This particular man who was a disciple of Yahshua Mashiach witnessed these things of Yahshua Mashiach's ministry. And he had to write this letter of understanding to Otheophilus, who was a Hebrew Israelite, to now explain to Otheophilus this was Yahshua Mashiach's purpose on what he gave to those disciples on. So the person who wrote to Otheophilus never said that Yahshua Mashiach gave those disciples a religion concept of Christianity. You don't see that in here. You see this particular man who addressed Otheophilus as saying, hey, Yahshua Mashiach, the Black Messiah, only gave those disciples those commandments through the Holy Ghost. You see this understanding? After that, he through the Holy Ghost had given commandments. Given commandments. It didn't say nothing about giving Christianity religion. Given commandments unto the apostles whom he had chosen, because Yahshua Mashiach gave those commandments to those apostles before he was taken up to go back to the heavenly realm with the Father. That's the understanding. So Yahshua Mashiach is all about the commandments, even after he had resurrected, right? So Yahshua Mashiach was still promoting Yahweh's commandments even after he had resurrected. That's what this author, whoever had wrote the book of Acts, is basically explaining. Because, again, this particular person who wrote the book of Acts was a part of that ministry of understanding, witnessing Yahshua Mashiach's ministry to those apostles. So basically, this is no confusion here. But what's confusion is these religion institutions are claiming that Christ told those disciples to go out there and teach Christianity religion. That is a lie. Yahshua only gave those apostles who were those disciples, he only gave them commandments. Point blank, period. We're going to let this Bible be true and every man a liar. Acts chapter 1 verse 3. This is a continuation in a letter to Otheophilus. Acts chapter 1 verse 3. To whom also he showed himself alive after his passion by many infallible proofs, being seen of them 40 days, and speaking of the things pertaining to the kingdom of Elohim. You see this, Israel? Not one time did this particular author who wrote the book of Acts in this understanding, in this particular verse of understanding, because at different times you can have different authors at different times write in these particular letters on the certain missionary journeys. But we're going to stick in this context of what this author is explaining to this particular man named Otheophilus. He's explaining that by many infallible proofs, being seen of them 40 days, and speaking of things pertaining to the kingdom of Elohim. So he's explaining to Otheophilus that, hey, we saw all the proofs and evidence about Yahshua Mashiach, the Black Messiah, on what he was come to do and what he was come to do to teach. But not one time did he say, hey, we saw Christ, he wanted to push Christianity religion. You don't see that in here. Yahshua Mashiach was all about restoring Israel to be in the right mindset of Yahweh. That's what this understanding is getting into. That this particular man who's writing to a man named Otheophilus is saying that they witnessed Yahshua Mashiach resurrection. They witnessed Yahshua Mashiach dwelling amongst them for 40 days. Showing them infallible proofs of understanding about the kingdom of the Most High that was going to be established in the future on earth. This is what this man is explaining. But you don't see nowhere in this Bible where it's saying that Yahshua Mashiach told these apostles to push Christianity religion. You don't see that in here. So now you see the understanding that Yahshua the Mashiach only promoted Yahweh's commandments and not the Christian religion. Because Acts chapter 1 verse 2 says he gave the commandments unto the apostles. So now those apostles are going to go out and teach those other Israelites that scattered abroad outside of Israel. They're going to teach what? About Yahweh's commandments. Because Christ gave that order to give to those disciples to teach about Yahweh's commandments. That's how they are a follower of Christ. By teaching Yahweh's commandments to the children of Israel. Because Yahshua the Mashiach did those things. He taught Yahweh's commandments.